In a world that is just overflowing with conflicting messages, how do you find your own clarity? And maybe even more importantly, how do we guide the next generation through all of it? Today, we're going to dive into a sermon that offers a pretty timeless framework for exactly that.
And this really is the central question, isn't it? We are all constantly bombarded with information, with temptations, with competing ideas about what's right and what's wrong. So, where does true clarity actually come from? Well, the sermon we're exploring today suggests the answer isn't really found out there in the world, but by looking inward.
Now, according to the source, this isn't just random noise we're dealing with. It's presented as a deliberate test. The sermon actually personifies this challenge as a great deceiver who uses all the shiny, attractive things in the world to try and pull us away from a deeper truth.
So, this slide really visualizes that core conflict being described. On one hand, you've got the worldly life, with all its glamour and attractions, which the source calls fleeting and ultimately deceptive. And on the other hand, you have the hereafter, which is presented as the ultimate, eternal reality, where a final judgment is waiting. The real danger, according to this view, is getting so lost in that first column that you completely forget about the second.
Okay, so if the world is so confusing, what's the solution? The source introduces this really foundational concept called fitra. This is described as the pure original human nature that we are all born with. Think of it like a spiritual blueprint that's already inherently aligned with what's true.
And this is where it all starts to come together. The argument here is that the universe operates by a certain set of rules, and our fitra, our natural state, is already in harmony with them. So by realigning with this innate disposition, we can start to see the world clearly again, and, as the source puts it, unlock the blessings that Allah has encoded in this world. But to actually live a life that's aligned with our fitra, we're going to need a specific tool. The source calls this hikmah, or wisdom. And we're not just talking about being book smart. It's defined as this profound ability to differentiate between right and wrong, between truth and falsehood. It's presented as one of the absolute greatest blessings a person can receive. And this quote from the source really drives home just how valuable hikmah is. Being granted wisdom is basically the same as being given much good. It's the compass that allows us to navigate through all the deceptions of the world and stay true to our original nature. So, how do you cultivate this wisdom? Well, the sermon offers a really practical guide by highlighting the timeless advice a wise man named Luqman gave to his son. It's presented as a clear roadmap for how to live your life. The very first principle is gratitude. The source makes a big point that being thankful isn't for God's benefit, it's for our own. It's presented as this foundational practice, a way of recognizing our blessings, that in the end enriches our own soul, no matter what our circumstances are. Luqman's advice then lays out 4 key actions. First, connect with the divine through prayer. Second and third, be an active force for good in society, promote what is right and stand against what is wrong. And finally, be patient. The source is very clear that this world is a test, so being able to endure trials is absolutely essential. See, this isn't just a to-do list. It's presented as a proactive defense against that heedlessness we talked about earlier. The advice then gets even more personal, focusing on our daily conduct. Don't be arrogant, walk with humility, and lower your voice. The source includes a really memorable warning here. The harshest voice is that of a donkey. It's a powerful way of reminding us that these simple acts of humility are framed as an antidote to all the noise and arrogance of a deceptive world. So, how does all of this ancient wisdom connect back to our initial question about guiding the next generation? This is where the sermon makes its most direct and, honestly, its most urgent point. This metaphor from the source is incredibly powerful. It presents the mind of a young person as fertile but uncultivated land, just ready to accept whatever seeds are planted in it. And that, of course, places an immense responsibility on the whole community to be very, very thoughtful gardeners. The sermon argues that this urgency is cranked way up because this uncultivated land is being actively targeted. The great deceiver is described as being hell-bent on confusing the children, using modern tools to sow seeds of doubt and moral confusion before their values can even take root.
And to make this point concrete, the sermon offers specific examples from popular children's media. It raises concerns about shows like The Owl House and Gravity Falls on Disney Plus, and The Dragon Prince and She-Ra on Netflix. The source cites themes like witchcraft, supernatural content, and the normalization of LGBTQ relationships as examples of what it considers seeds of confusion being planted in young, impressionable minds.
So what's the ultimate defense? What are the best seeds to plant? The source concludes that the most powerful lessons aren't just spoken, they're demonstrated. Kids learn by copying. So when they see a community that actually practices justice, brotherhood, and mercy, they internalize those virtues as the norm. The actions of the community, that's what becomes the real curriculum.
And that leaves us with this final, crucial question. It takes that central metaphor of the sermon and turns it right back on us. If a child's heart is truly like uncultivated land, it forces us to reflect on our own actions, on our community's values, and on the media we all consume. It asks, what seeds are we, collectively and individually, choosing to plant?